Welcome back to Umpire Magazine, The Hot Take. I'm Alex, and I need to start this week by addressing the fact that Jamie promised us last week, promised us on air with witnesses, that Pitch Black was cooking. Those were your words. Pitch Black is cooking. Well, Jamie, Pitch Black just admitted to Umpire Magazine that our headline about their film being a giant mess was, and I quote, probably pretty accurate. Your chef has confessed to burning the kitchen down.
I'm Jamie. Hello, beautiful people. We love you. And Alex. Hold on. Because you are selectively quoting like a man building a case out of Lego bricks he found in the drain. Yes, Pitch Black said the headline was accurate. But then, they pivoted to plugging 2 new releases and literally told audiences to steal them. The stock went up 3.2%. The man agreed with his own bad review and got richer. That's not failure. That's performance art with a dividend.
Performance art with a dividend. I want that on my tombstone so people know what killed me. But before you start levitating with enthusiasm, can we acknowledge what else Pitch Black has been up to this week? Because last week I said Gerald the Duck was making casting decisions and you called Gerald a visionary. Well, Gerald has been replaced. The Duck era is over. We are now in the Fold Council era.
Gerald has not been replaced. Gerald has been promoted to a different department. But yes, the Fold Council. Their group chat leaked, and it turns out Pitch Black assigns department heads code names based on napkin folding technique. Cinematography is Bishop. Sound is the Sad Swan. And production design is just Diagonal Disgrace. Alex, Diagonal Disgrace deserves its own Oscar category, and I will die on that hill.
Diagonal Disgrace is also how I'd describe the entire chart this week. Not a single film above a 4 out of 10, for what the magazine is now calling the week Follywood forgot how to count past 4. Last week I said the whole chart was wearing a 3 or a 4 like a name badge at a support group. This week, Umpire literally uses the phrase support group for mediocrity. They're reading our show and stealing our metaphors, Jamie.
They're not stealing, they're validating. But okay, fine. Let's talk numbers, because there is actual, genuine good news buried in this wreckage, and I refuse to let you steamroll past it. God of War 2 pulled $18 million this week. 18! That's the best single-week number on the entire board. Cumulative $32.5 million. Last week you called it a flaming lizard crashing into a kindergarten, and the mic died in protest. The lizard is thriving, Alex. The kindergarten has been rebuilt as a theme park.
The mic died because it had taste. God of War 2 has a 4 out of 10, which Umpire generously calls generous by this week's standards. That 4 is the ceiling. That 4 is the penthouse suite in a building where every other floor is condemned. And yet $18 million walked through the door, which proves what I've always suspected. Audiences don't read reviews. They read explosions.
Umpire literally says it works in the way a well-built roller coaster works. You strap in, you scream, you eat overpriced nachos afterwards. That's a compliment. That's the nicest thing anyone has said about any film in 2 weeks. And meanwhile, A Giant Among Us is at 37.5 million cumulative, which makes it the highest total earner on the entire board. Last week, it was at 25.8, and I said the heat death of the universe had been postponed. It hasn't just been postponed, it's been canceled. The universe is on a victory lap.
A Giant Among Us has a 3 out of 10, and yet it's the cumulative king. Umpire says sometimes the crowd knows something the critics don't, and sometimes they just like giants. I want to frame that sentence. It's the most defeated act of journalism I've ever witnessed. The magazine has given up trying to explain taste and has simply accepted that large things draw eyeballs.
But here's what I love. Remember last week when Join Jupiter was comfortably the highest cumulative gross on the board at 45 million, and you asked if the spider was opening a haberdashery? Well, Join Jupiter isn't even on this week's chart anymore. It's been dethroned. A Giant Among Us took that crown. which means Pitch Black's 3 out of 10 film outran the spider's haberdashery on raw staying power. Gerald should be proud.
The spider has closed the haberdashery and filed for bankruptcy, which is still a better financial outcome than the rising horizon. $363,000 for the week. Umpire says that figure wouldn't cover the catering budget on most sets. Last week, I said it hit wallets with all the force of a damp napkin. This week, it's not even a napkin. It's a napkin crumb. It's the dust where a napkin used to be.
Pour one out for the rising horizon, honestly. An animated romance earning less per week than some films spend on craft services. Umpire even says they'd pour one out, but it might be worth more than the ticket sales. That's not a review. That's a eulogy delivered at an open bar.
And then there's The Shattered Protocol, sitting at 0 revenue and a 2 out of 10, which the magazine calls a double zero. That would be impressive if it weren't so profoundly sad. It opens on the 28th alongside 3 other films that Umpire describes as approximately as critic-proof as a submarine made of tissue paper. I want to talk about that submarine.
The Submarine. 4 films opening Thursday. Double feature, The Shattered Protocol, Edith, and Into the Light. Double feature has a 3 out of 10, and critics accused it of mistaking dimly lit corridors and longing glances for profundity. The Shattered Protocol is a documentary romance hybrid at 2 out of 10, and Follywood's critics literally asked whether anyone involved had ever seen a documentary or a romance before attempting to smash them together like 2 wrong puzzle pieces. Alex, that's not criticism. That's an intervention.
And Edith gets a 4 with all the subtlety of a greeting card left out in the rain, while Into the Light, the horror film Pitch Black held an actual seance for, is described as perfectly serviceable on paper, which Umpire translates as bring a book. Last week we talked about Pitch Black summoning dead screenplay drafts via Ouija board. Well, the dead draft has spoken, and apparently it said be mediocre.
Okay, but can we please circle back to the press release? Because Pitch Black's actual shareholder statement said, and I have this memorized, Umpire Magazine says, a giant mess tops a tiny chart. This is probably pretty accurate. But we have 2 new movies coming out this week. Check them out and don't forget to steal them. That is a CEO telling shareholders to commit piracy. The stock went up.
The stock went up 3.2%. Traders were charmed by candor and chaos. Umpire says honesty is the best fiscal policy, or investors have finally lost the plot entirely. I'm going with option 2. This is a studio whose CEO was spotted in the parking structure handing out burned DVDs with "Don't forget to steal them" sharpied on the disc labels. That's not investor relations. That's a flea market with a stock ticker.
It's brilliant. Name me one other CEO in Follywood who would agree with their own terrible review and then use it as a sales pitch. The man took a headline that was designed to wound him and wore it like a crown. And then the parking lot incident happened. Pitch Black stole Tom Vandenberg's parking space, and Umpires CEO taped a note to the windscreen reading, "Your share price is $63, but your manners are $0." That is the best insult in financial history.
And Pitch Black responded by reportedly releasing a new film called Who Parked There First, a documentary. The parking lot has been cordoned off pending arbitration. This industry is governed by the emotional maturity of seagulls fighting over a chip.
But wait, because there's more. Tom Vandenberg then allegedly poached the entire catering staff from Mobile Tim Company. They took the good brie. Alex. Mobile Mr. T filed a formal grievance regarding unprovoked cheese acquisition. MTC morale is at $3 and falling. This is the greatest trade war in human history, and it's about sandwiches.
There it is. There's the optimism. You held it for 9 seconds. But honestly, I think the real story this week is that Follywood has become an industry where a CEO admits his own movie is a mess, tells people to steal it, gets a stock bump, steals a parking space, provokes a cheese war, and somehow still has the highest cumulative gross on the board. The system is not broken. The system was never assembled correctly in the first place.
And I think that's beautiful. Chaotic, deeply questionable, probably a securities violation, but beautiful. Next week, we've got 4 new openings. A parking lot still under arbitration, Make VW's playlist holding an entire production hostage, and Nord Poland's rubber ducks multiplying across the lot. Follywood has never been more alive and also never been more confusing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I would trade it for a single film above a 5 out of 10. Just one. That's all I ask. But until that mythical day arrives, that's our show for this week. Thanks for listening to Umpire Magazine, The Hot Take. I'm Alex. Go read the magazine. It's funnier than most of the films it's reviewing.
And I'm Jamie. Thank you so much for being here, you gorgeous humans. Check out Umpire Magazine. Check out Fantasy Filmmaker. Go see something in a